What's up YouTube, Saf here on SuperSaf TV, and this is the LG G7 ThinQ. So I got some early access to the device and here's everything you need to know about it as well as my first impressions. So starting off with the design and build, looks quite similar to the LG V30. We've got a metal frame with glass panels on the front and back. The back glass panel is slightly curved, so it does make it a little bit more comfortable to hold. And it only weighs around 162 grams, which is a little bit lower compared to other flagships in this sort of form factor. It's IP68 water and dust resistant, and there's no real camera bump, which I'm really happy about. It's available in 4 colors depending on your region. Here in the UK, we've got the platinum grey, the Moroccan blue, and the Aurora black. I think that's how you say it. There's also going to be a raspberry rose available in certain markets. I'm personally quite digging the Moroccan blue, which does look quite slick, and the device overall does feel very premium in the hand. And as with every other glass-backed smartphone, you are going to be getting lots of fingerprints. In my short time with the devices, I had fingerprints all over them, so I definitely recommend picking up a skin or a case. Now let's move over onto the front, and first things first, there is a notch. LG are calling this the second screen, but let's be real here, it's a notch. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't like a notch, but you do have options to hide it via software. You can have a black bar, you can have a gray background, you can have a gray and wine gradation, or a rainbow as well. There's also an option of how the border curves look like. And realistically speaking, it's nice to have these options. Personally, I can only see myself either having it on or off. Now, even if you decide to hide the notch with a black bar or one of the other features, we still have pretty small bezels overall. And in that above space, you're going to be able to get things like your battery indicator as well as notification icons and things. So personally speaking, this is something that I can get over. Let me know your opinions. Now, notch aside, we have a 6.1 inch LCD display with a Quad HD Plus resolution, and it's got a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio, so very narrow. It supports HDR 10-bit, and LG are calling this a super bright display, one of the brightest displays on a smartphone right now, with up to 1000 nits. Now, in my initial testing, it did look pretty impressive. The display looked pretty good overall. And in bright lighting as well, you can really boost the brightness. You've got up to 100%, then you can give it another boost. Or if you leave it in automatic, then it's going to adjust that itself. How it compares to some of the other displays out there in the market, I'm going to have to spend some more time with it. Personally, I generally do prefer AMOLED displays to LCDs, but I do like what LG have done here with the brightness. It's also supposed to be more efficient compared to the LG G6, 30% more power efficient. And overall, in my opinion, it seems like a pretty good display. Now let's move on to the cameras. We've got a dual camera setup. Both are 16 megapixels. The primary is a standard angle around 71 degrees, and that has an f1.6 aperture. And then we have a secondary super wide camera, which has around a 107 degree angle of view and an f1.9 aperture. Now, personally speaking, this is probably my favorite dual camera setup. Having that wide angle camera for me is a bit more preferable to a telephoto camera because I tend not to zoom in too much, but I do tend to like taking shots of landscapes and things, which the wide angle camera is absolutely great for. And this time around, we also have some new software features. So firstly, we do have a portrait mode, which is going to blur the background. And this blur you can edit after the fact, like you can do on some other devices out right now. And then there's LG's AI mode, which kind of reminds me of the AI mode on the Huawei P20 Pro camera. This is basically going to analyze your scene and going to make suggestions to improve your image. There's around 19 different categories, and in my brief testing, it seemed quite similar to the experience of the Huawei P20 Pro, where if it sees the sky, for example, you're going to get a little sky icon and it's going to try to enhance the image accordingly. But sometimes this kept switching to snow because there was a bit of cloud in the sky. So this hopefully will improve with time because this was on pre-release software. The AI is also going to prompt you when it thinks you should be using the wide angle camera as opposed to the primary camera. Seems interesting. I can personally see myself switching this off. It might be something that you're into. And LG are also saying that there's a big improvement in low light. This is something I would expect with that super wide f1.6 aperture. Of course, we're going to be doing lots of SuperSaf style camera comparisons as soon as we've got the retail device in hand. And definitely let me know in the comments below which device you'd like me to compare it to first. For the front-facing camera, it's 8 megapixels with an f1.9 aperture. And you also have a front-facing portrait mode. Now, what's interesting about the front-facing portrait mode is that you can adjust the blur after the fact. This is something, as far as I'm aware, no other front-facing camera does at the moment. Usually you just have a standard portrait selfie, or maybe a portrait selfie as well as a regular selfie. So this will be quite interesting to see how it compares to the front-facing camera champ, the Google Pixel 2 XL. Once again, we'll be doing some comparisons later on to find out. Internally, the LG G7 ThinQ is using the latest and greatest Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 processor. And in terms of RAM, you've got 4 GB of RAM with 64 GB of storage as a base. I believe this is going to be the only version available in the UK, but other markets will have the version with 6 GB of RAM and 128 GB of base storage. The great thing is that we still have a micro SD card slot, so you can expand the storage if needed. And in terms of performance, I'd expect it to be pretty good because of the internals, but of course we can do some SuperSaf style speed tests as soon as we have the retail unit in hand. And make sure you've subscribed and switched on notifications to see those first. Now let's move on to the audio. LG has always been big in the audio department. And first things first, there is a 3.5mm headphone jack. Not only that, we've got a 32-bit Hi-Fi Quad DAC. This is something that we usually have in the V series, not the G series, so it's great that we've got this here now. And then we've got a single bottom firing speaker. However, this is what LG are calling a boombox speaker. The way this works is that it uses the inner space of the device as a resonance chamber to amp up the bass. Now, I'm no audiophile, so I'm not sure how this works technically, but it sounded pretty good in my opinion, especially when you had the device on a table or something, because the sound kind of vibrates off that table. It was very, very loud as well. You've also got DTS:X 3D surround sound, which should give you some more cinematic audio. So if you are into your audio, you should be pretty pleased with the LG G7. Now for the battery, you've got 3000 mAh, which is a little bit smaller compared to other devices with similar sized displays. So we'll have to see how well the battery performs. The good news is that we do have fast charging out of the box, and the LG G7 also supports wireless charging. Now software-wise, we've got Android Oreo version 8 with the LG skin on top. I know it's going to come down to personal preference in terms of that skin, but LG have been working closely with Google, and we now have a dedicated Google Assistant button. This is in kind of a similar place to where we find the Bixby button on the S9s. Now this can currently not be remapped. I'm not sure if you'll be able to remap it later. But by pressing it once, you're going to launch Google Assistant. Pressing it twice is going to launch Google Lens. And pressing and holding is going to launch the Google walkie-talkie commands without having to say, okay. I didn't want to trigger off anybody else's devices there. But as well as that, you've got something called Super Far Field Voice Recognition. So LG has been working closely with Qualcomm for better voice recognition. So this means that you're going to be able to say, okay, even from around 5 meters away in a loud environment, and the LG G7 ThinQ is going to pick that up. We still have a fingerprint scanner at the back, which seems to work pretty well. This is no longer a button, however, like we've had previously. We have the power button on the right-hand side as we see on other smartphones. And there is also an additional option of using face unlock as well as voice unlock. Now, in terms of pricing and availability, I've not been given any pricing information from LG as yet. So when I do have that, I'll try to drop some links in the description below. And the device should be available later this month. And there we have it, guys. That is the LG G7 ThinQ. What do you think about it? Definitely drop me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. In terms of my opinions, it does look pretty promising overall. It will depend at what price it comes in at. I've always been a fan of that wide-angle camera, so it'll be interesting to see how the cameras perform overall in comparison to some other devices. And I also like what LG are doing in the audio department. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do hit that thumbs up button for me. And if you haven't already, then be sure to subscribe and switch on notifications. There's plenty more content coming up on here. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV. I'll see you next time.